do your introductions and get going, sir.
Okay, my name is Ron Dalton Jr., author and filmmaker, Hebrews to Negroes Wake Up Black America. I'm here in South Africa. My stance now is that the true Holy Land, or the land of the Canaanites, is in sub-Saharan Africa. It is not just localized to one area like South Africa, or Ethiopia, or Kenya, or Namibia. One of the things that we fail to understand is we have to look at reality. Reality. The Bible is a book, and many people use the Bible alone to justify where the true land of the Canaanites are, without even trying to figure out who are the Canaanites today. Intrinsic evidence is the Bible and what the Bible says in regards to the geography of the land, the topography of the land, the hydrogeology of the land, meaning the water sources, the ecosystem of the land, the biology of the land, the living organisms that lived in the land. All these things, including descriptions of nations, the Egyptians, the Cushites, the Puttites, the Canaanites, the Israelites, the Ishmaelites. These are all listed in the Bible. But then you got to have what they call as extrinsic evidence, which is extra biblical evidence. Now, that has to support and not override the intrinsic evidence of the Bible, and it must line up. If it doesn't line up, then we have a problem. One of the things when we look at extrinsic evidence, we look at certain things like historical accounts from other nations. In this case, most of the time, we are using the historical accounts of, or the oral histories of the Gentiles, like the Greeks and the Romans, or maybe even the Edomites, not the oral history of the Bantu people themselves, who are the living, walking Israelites, or even the people that are the descendants of Cush and Canaan and Mitzrayim or Egypt. We don't use these historical accounts for extrinsic evidence. Then you have to look at empirical evidence. Empirical evidence is tangible, observable proof in reality. You can look at archaeological inscriptions. You can look at DNA, bones, skulls, all these things. But one of the things that we have to remember is that when dealing with archaeology, we have to look at what they call the archaeologist's integrity, the integrity of the archaeologist that says, I found this here, and this is how old it is, and it's the truth, it's the real deal. But we know that there is a lot of forgery in terms of archaeology. People can use forgeries and plant them in certain areas in the world to advance national, religious, or ethnic identity agendas, theories, and beliefs. This is true when you look at the Gentiles, how they conspire to keep our identity from us for so long. They can use archaeology and being the first man on the scene to advance a religious or a political or spiritual agenda, which they've been doing. So it's easier to create a forgery than to uh, 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 pay the resources to have these forgeries to be proved to be false. And there are examples of biblical forgeries that are out there right now. One of the things that we cannot really forge is DNA. DNA is something that no man can come to me, Ron Dalton, and change my DNA, or somebody in South Africa or the Congo. And when looking at DNA in terms of maternal DNA and paternal DNA from the father, you can test ancient DNA from the maternal side and the paternal side, and then you can compare the migrations of this DNA from one part of the world, meaning Egypt, to another part of the world, meaning Sub-Saharan Africa. And you can look at all the mutations that have occurred along the line and see this ancient origin of this DNA. And with that, we can determine using the Bible who the true Israelites are, because the true Israelites mixed with the children of Canaan. These are descendants of Africans or Hamites, and they mixed with many other nations of Canaan, not Canaan, but the Egyptians and the Cushites. So when you look at all these things, we have to pay attention to DNA cannot be manipulated, changed, forged, created. Man can't create DNA. Man cannot create E1B1A, and all these other haplogroups that we see in sub-Saharan Africans today, in ancient DNA and modern DNA studies. These are the things I'm going to bring out in addition to other proofs to prove that the true Holy Land and the migration route of the biblical Israelites in the Exodus happened from Egypt, and they went south following the course of the Nile River, or the river of reeds, or the large body of reeds, the Yam Suf. And when they crossed the so-called Red Sea, they crossed the Nile River, the river of reeds. This is the Yam Suf again. This is a known fact that reeds do not grow in the Gulf or the Sea of Aqaba or the Red Sea. It is a hot, highly saline environment, water source that does not have any capability for these types of plants to grow, let alone hardly any fish grows, especially in the salt sea, or what they call the Dead Sea in the Bible. So I'm going to give them that facts when I have my time, but that's what I'm going to tell people today. Use reality in the Bible.
Thank you, Ron. Smack bang on 6 minutes. The promised land is in sub-Saharan Africa. The other person on the panel who is supporting this stance and argument is Brother Yahunde Batakane. I just need to unmute you, Brother Yahunde, and not cheat you on your time. Hold on, let me unmute you first.
Greetings, salama everybody. I'm honored to be here. My name is Yahunde Batakane, and originally from the Congo, and I'm the author of the book Sunset to Sunset, a Bantu Calendar, which is a book that talks about the Bantu calendar using the Bible side by side with Bantu culture, the language, and speech, and just the geography of the land itself. And so that being the actually topic of today, we're talking about the land itself, and I think it's very important that we take this it's a very sensitive conversation, because the common belief is that the land is in the Middle East. That's everybody's belief. When you wake up, the first time you remember you are an Israelite, the first time you know you are an Israelite, the first thing because the narrative that we've been fed for hundreds of years is that Israel, I mean not 100 actually, sorry, for the last 40 plus, not that long. I'm not giving them that many years. For the last 40 plus years, we've been fed the same narrative that this is the land, this is the land, this is the land. And so when you awake that you are an Israelite, the first thing that clicks is that, wow, I'm an Israelite, so that must be my land. Those must be my people. That must be my language. Everything, your direction, literally just face it. Whether before that you were facing Rome, or you were facing Saudi Arabia if you were Muslim, I don't know. The minute you awaken, you want to draw direction unto Israel, more than Israel. And that's easy. It's easy. It's something. It's easy fed. It's been prepared that way, so that when you awake, you are drawn to that first, before diving into the word and reading and thinking. And to brother Ron's point, the truth that's within your face, that's in your face every single day. And I think that when you think about when we say Bantu people are the Israelites, which I think everybody in this panel agree, right? Bantu, where are the Bantu people? They are all in sub-Saharan Africa. And then when you read the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, what does it say? It says that in page 213, it says that Ham is the progenitors of the dark races, not the Negroes. When you think about when you study history, the dark races are not actually sub-Saharan African. These are Northern African predominantly. Those are we call the dark races. These are the Hamitic people. They are not in sub-Saharan Africa. So when people think about Africa as being the land of Ham, it's like, what? What are you talking about? The dictionary is telling us that the Ham is the progenitor of the dark races. In Africa, we don't have dark races. They go all the way to the Northern Africa, from only Northern Africa all the way to the Middle East. That's where you find predominantly the dark races. So that's already telling that the land of Ham is not here, because the sub-Saharan African is not a land of the dark races people. It's a land of the Negro people. Now, this book tells you that the Ham is not an ancestor of the Negro, which makes the Negro something entirely different, which we believe makes the Negro the Shemitic, and evidences are proven in the Bible, in their culture, their linguistics, and the migration history and everything. And so then, if Ham is not the ancestor of the Negro, and the only other option is Japheth. We know we are not Japhethite because Japheth has been clearly described as being the Europe and all the other Asian countries. Then we are left with what? With Shem, which makes these Negroid people Shemitic. And if the Negroes are Shemitic, right? What does that mean? What means that we have to look at where the Negroes are. All the Negro tribes, all the Negroid are described by the European history, the European evidences, is that the Negroes are actually originally sub-Saharan African. This is even an argument that we try to go back and forth with modern Jews. It's because when we try to tell them that we're Israelites, they say, no, you are not. You are just some sub-Saharan African people. You are Negro. And this upper amount of evidence to prove that the Negroes are actually indigenous to sub-Saharan Africa. So when you think about our DNA proves the same thing. If you do a DNA and you're from Congo, South Africa, or Kenya, or Uganda, or or any of these sub-Saharan African, Malawi, you realize that your DNA is just is within that surrounding of the Central Southern Africa region. So for me, I would agree with people who claim that Kenya being the promised land, Congo, South Africa, I believe they actually agree. They're agreeing on the same thing. Because these are all predominantly Bantu countries. So when you think about Shem being being the Negro, right? And then you realize all the Negroes are in sub-Saharan Africa. People who claim that if we claim that the land is in Egypt, next to Egypt, I would like people to give me evidence that shows that these Negroid people, that all of them, all the descent of Shem, there's a biblical evidence or historical evidence of migration that they migrated into sub-Saharan Africa. I will not find that. But because the Shemitic people were where they were, they're still the Negroid people, and they're still in the land of the Negroes, which is sub-Saharan Africa. So my take on my contribution to this conversation is going to be talking about the Bantu people being, because that's where my most of my work is done, on the Bantu people being the Israelites. But that we're looking at that from, like, projecting from that, because we say that, but we don't think about why we're saying that. We don't think about, if the Bantu are the Israelites, then the land that my ancestors own, nobody gave it to them. This was their land for thousands and thousands of years, and I'm not giving it up. The language that my ancestors speak, a Bantu language. This is a Hebrew language that my brother was sharing, my brother Michael was sharing. This is a Hebrew language. So that means then I don't have to give up my language, which is, I have to avoid indoctrination. I have to avoid conversion. A lot of people are converting, but they claim that they are awakening, but they're really converting into something different, something outside of who they are. And so I hope that in my presentation today that I'll be able to expand more on this conversation. Thank you.
We ready for you to go, Ron. Your time starts now.
All right, so let's just get some things clear. Picture the oral history of the Bantu people. When you look at the story of Abraham and Lot, Abraham was given a well-watered land. Lot had his portion that was partly destroyed with Sodom and Gomorrah. When you look at Ezekiel 38:22, it says that in the last days that God's going to rain down pestilence and blood, great hailstones, fire, and brimstone in the land of Canaan against the Gentile nations. You cannot have fire and brimstone raining down in reality unless you have volcanoes. Volcanic brimstone is sulfur that's found in the formation of volcanoes when they erupt in the form of solids, liquids, and gas. Solids meaning stones, liquid meaning rain, like sulfuric rain. And this is a known fact. There's no active volcanoes in Israel today. When you look at the word Sodom in the Hebrew Strong's is 5467, it says burnt and it says volcanic district. Sodom. If you look at today's so-called Sodom, there's no volcanoes. There's no volcanoes. It's a desert. It's just rocks and deserts. You look at the Hebrew word for Sodom and Gomorrah, how it became. It says the Hebrew word is chamar, which is 2560. It means to boil up, to glow with redness, to be foul, fermenting. How do you have something glow with redness unless you have a active volcanic mountain or volcanic lakes that are just constantly on fire? How do you have fermentation and foul smell unless you have sulfur burning along with fire and sulfuric acids that you see where, not in Israel, but in the Danakil Depression in northeast Ethiopia, in a city called Dalal in northeast Ethiopia? We see salt lakes, salt flats, and salt pits and sulfuric lakes in the Danakil Depression in northeast Ethiopia, right near Eritrea. Now, why is this important? Because if you read the Bible, it says that in Numbers 21, when the Israelites left with Moses, they left Mount Hor, following the pathway of the Nile River, or the river of reeds. They followed the pathway of the Nile River. When they left Egypt with Moses and the Israelites, and they followed the path of the Nile River, the river of reeds, not the Red Sea, because there's no reeds growing there. And they had to go around Edom, which is the outer boundary of his land, to get to the area where they battled the Canaanite kings, like the king of Arad and the Amorites. It said that Edom's land was near the Salt Sea, which they incorrectly called the Dead Sea. The Romans named it the Dead Sea because nothing lives there. King David and Joab, his army officer, defeated the Edomites in the Valley of Salt. In the Hebrew, it's Melach, Hebrew Strong's 4417, in the Valley of Salt, meaning a salt pit. Where do we see salt pits at today? Actual salt pits. You see it in northeast Ethiopia, in the Danakil Depression, in the area known as Dalal, Ethiopia. In Ezekiel 4, verse 9, it mentions different types of grains. It mentions Dagan grains. It mentions Dokan millet. It mentions sorghum, shiver, or lekek. It mentions chitta, which is wheat. It mentions seor, which is barley. All these grains are in Africa. Sorghum and millet is not indigenous to Israel. It's a known fact. Let's keep going. When you look at the Ugaritic tablets found in 1920 in northeast Syria, dated back to 1300 BC, which is the late Bronze Age, you see that they have the word El or Il. The Il, I-L, is used 500 times in the Baal cycle or the Ugaritic tablets found in northeast Syria. Now, why would the Canaanite tablets be found in northeast Syria when that's not the land of Canaan? And why is it found in the Bronze Age in 1300 BC? Well, the story of the Baal cycle is the story of El or Il and his sons Baal and Yam. Yam is the god of the primordial waters, the lakes, the rivers, the oceans, the seas. And you have Baal, who's another deity who's like a thunder rain god. When you look at the Akkadian text, you see that the Akkadian text uses the Assyrian Babylonian cuneiform script. When you look at the Egyptian Amarna letters, you'll see that it mentions the kings of Canaan. And so Pharaoh Amenhotep and Akhenaten in 1353 BC, they sent diplomatic letters between the Egyptian kings and the vassal Egyptian rulers of what they call Canaan. They wrote this in the Assyrian cuneiform script, not Egyptian hieroglyphics. Now, the Renapta Stele was written in Egyptian hieroglyphics, and it mentions a differentiation between the people of Israel and the actual land of Canaan. This was found in Thebes in Egypt. Now, the word Canaan is written in the determinative denoting a place or land, while Israel is determinative of a people. In the Assyrian Babylonian cuneiform script, Il, I-L, was the ancient name for God in the earliest strata of the Semitic languages belonging to East Semitic, West Semitic, and South Semitic. The linguistic experts conclude that the Proto-Semitic word Il existed and was used before the word El was used. Now, the Ugaritic is synonymous with Phoenician and the Canaanites. Now, the Efe Pygmies in the northeast Congo, Efe, E-F-E, their word for God is Il or Ilu. This is the same word that the Assyrian Babylonian cuneiform script uses for the word for God. So Il, I-L, or Ilu means God in the Assyrian Babylonian cuneiform script, which is a Shemitic script. The Epic Pygmies likewise use the word Il as the word for God, and also they call God the Father. The word Ilani or Ila is also equivalent to force, power, strength, and energy, similar to the word El, which is El is the word for God in what we call Hebrew, and also is synonymous with God, power, strength, authority, or leader. Now, it's a known fact that these little black people called the African pygmies, like the Batwa and the Mbuti and the Bokola and the Efe pygmies, that they existed and lived in sub-Saharan Africa for thousands of years, dating back in terms of most recent common ancestor, KYI, and when you look at these different terminologies, years before present, radiocarbon dating, you'll see that the African pygmies, like these little black people that they call the Abatwa or the Akafula or the Denik or the Dink, these people were living in sub-Saharan Africa in the times of 7,000, 8,000, 5,000 BC, predating the birth of Abraham and the Israelites and the Edomites. You can find proof of this because you look in many of the rock shelter caves in Africa, like the Shumlaka cave in Cameroon. They have a Mortar cave in Ethiopia. They have the Kasiri cave in Tanzania, many caves in Malawi. In these caves, because remember the Canaanites buried their dead in caves, you'll find that the African pygmies, Y DNA B2B and BM60, and the maternal DNA L0A, L1C, and L5 is seen dating back years before present. That's a scientific term. Years before present to 7,000 BC. Now, why is this important? Because in their maternal DNA L0A, L1C, L5, L2B, you will see that this is also found in sub-Saharan African Negroes and Bantu people. Now, it's a known fact that in ancient Egypt, they had the pygmies run around as servants and cupbearers and entertainers and dancers. But overall, the majority of the people that lived as common folk in ancient Egypt were the so-called Niger-Congo Bantu speakers, or the Egyptians were the pharaohs. This is proven by skulls, jaws, DNA. Now, the one thing they did find was that the maternal DNA of the African pygmies was found in ancient Egypt, found in Upper Nubia, Lower Nubia, like Wadi Hor, between the second, and the fourth cataract. And the maternal DNA L0A, L1C, L2B, L5 is also seen in the African pygmies as well as the sub-Saharan African Negroes, the Bantu people. This means that over time, that the Israelites, the Bantu people, left Egypt, then went south, following the course of the Nile through Sudan into Ethiopia, following continuously to Kenya and Tanzania, further down south into Zimbabwe, the great House of Song, following up into the Namibian Kalahari Desert, where near coast to Angola, then going into Angola, and then settling in the Kingdom of the Congo in Central Africa, where it was the African Great Lakes, where have all the mountains, lakes, rivers, and valleys, and all sorts of things. So let's keep going. When you look at the African pygmies, in the Swahili language, you have the diminutive word kana. Kana means a small child. Or you can use the Swahili word mwana, M-W-A-N-A. When you look at the word kana implies a small person or a small child. It's a diminutive word because the prefix ka or ki, when you add it to ana, which is the word for child in Bantu languages, makes it as a small child or a small person, where we get the root for the word Canaan. So we can see this when you say the word kijana is Swahili, a small teenager. Also, ka mwana versus kana is a certain version meaning a small teenager, but it also can be a diminutive or derogatory term or pejorative term, which is basically saying that this person is rejected, this person is kind of like despised and humiliated, which is the word Canaan in Hebrew. In the Hebrew Strong's 3667, Hebrew Strong's kana means humiliated and rejected. So the word kana Swahili also can be pejorative and also derogatory as rejected, humiliated, despised, which was happening with the curse of Canaan. This is a known fact. So when we look at all of these things, we say, well, wait a minute. Canaanites are people that are rejected, humiliated. They've been dominated by the Bantu people when they came into there. They became subject to them as servants. But the African pygmies, they also circumcised. Well, who taught them circumcision? They learned from the Bantu people. This is noted in many texts by the Europeans when they came down to Uganda and Congo. Noticed that the ethnic pygmies and Bamabuti pygmies were circumcising. So they got that from the Hebrew Israelites, the Bantu people. So let's keep on. The Abatwa pygmies in Malawi, they have in their priesthood, the guys that know how to actually write their ancient languages, they draw the symbol like a wave for the word or the pronunciation of M for water. They said for them the symbol of the wave is water because they had a shrine altar to the rain gods on the Mulanje Mountains in Malawi. This is a known fact. They also have the pronunciation ka, and they use a cupped hand. A cupped hand is like the Hebrew word kaf, because they said in their ancient culture, the open cup hand was how they presented the offerings to their gods, the sky gods. They had their stuff in their hand, and that's why the letter like kaf is the symbol of a cup hand or a cup bowl. They also have the T pronunciation, which was the X, like the Hebrew word ta. Remember, Phoenician, Canaanite, and Hebrew uses the same script at the end of the day. The African pygmies in the Congo, the ethnic pygmies, said that the Bantu people received the oracles or the messages of God from the highest mountain, the high mountains in the areas that they lived at in sub-Saharan Africa, like Uganda and Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, different areas, Malawi. We see that when you look at the Bible, it says that in the Bible that the Israelites, they had stones that were of iron. They also had mountains hard that had tin or copper or brass. There is no tin mines in Israel today. There is no massive iron mines that they go to mine for iron and for tin. This is a known fact in the Times of Israel, September 16, 2009, where it says Brown Bacon studied the ancient tin ingots found in Israel were mined in England. The Israelites did not go and get logistics and ships and planes and Amazon to get tin so they can make the brazen altar, the brazen sea that they washed their hands in Solomon's temple, the brazen serpent that Moses constructed. They didn't have to call Amazon or a ship or a company to bring it into their country. The Timnah Valley is in the southern part of southern Israel. That is not considered even a place where the Israelites were going back and forth to get tin. Now, lastly, when you look at the Bible, acacia trees, almond trees, sandalwood trees, fig tree, olive trees, ebony wood, cedar wood, ivory, all these things are in sub-Saharan Africa. It's not things that are indigenous to indigenous and plentiful and abundant in Israel. The land of Yam is the land of the south, because Yamin in Hebrew means south. The land of Yam is also land of many waters, because Yam means waters. That is seen in sub-Saharan Africa. The Pharaoh Pepi II sent expeditions into sub-Saharan Africa and Central Africa to get the pygmies that were known as the Ba'aka, and told them to bring them northwards following the course of the Nile River and bringing these pygmies, which they called in the Egyptian language Deneg, D-E-N-E-G. The pygmies also have ritual scarification and tattooing, which the Bible says in Leviticus 19:28 did not do. The Congo pygmies, like the Mabuti and the Efe, they tattoo their face and they put also markers in the face, which the Bible told them not to do. Now, many times we look at the DNA of the African pygmies. Why is this DNA of the African pygmies, who are the real kingdoms, why is it not seen anywhere in Israel in any Asian DNA studies? The maternal DNA, L0A, L1C, L5, all these different haplogroups are not seen anywhere in Israel. They're going to be the true Israelites. Neither is their paternal haplogroup, Y DNA, B2B or BM60. It's a known fact. The land of Canaan is for the sub-Saharan African pygmies. We are the Israelites.
Ron, I took away 20 seconds when I was trying to add your name. Go on for another 20 seconds.
Okay, so when you look at the Bible says the land of lakes and waters and springs, so well-watered land of drinks the dew from heaven. Lake Victoria is 68,000 square kilometers. 68,000. The land of Israel alone is 22,000 square kilometers. So Lake Victoria is like 3 times bigger than the size of Israel itself. The Sea of Galilee, 166 square kilometers. The Sea of Galilee is 166 square kilometers. Lake Victoria, 68,000 square kilometers. Lake Malawi, 30,000 square kilometers. Lake Tanganyika, 33,000 square kilometers. The Sea of Galilee is the largest freshwater lake in Israel, and they call that a land of well waters? No, please, give me a break.
Your 15 minutes starts now, brother. Go.
Thank you, Brother Ron, and thank you everybody for being able to join us today and be able to participate as well as listen to the facts being presented about the land. Starting off with the verse that brother Dinano presented, Exodus chapter 3 verse 8. And I want to say this before I even go into my conversation. I remember Brother Michael saying that we are leaning towards what the Egyptians said, but my book is all about what the Bible says and what the Bantu people say. Unless you're calling the Bantu people the Egyptians, then I guess then I don't know. But when I read through Exodus chapter 3 verse 8, it tells us, it starts off by saying, so I come, it says, so I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of their land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, and Havitites and Jebusites. So when you think about it, the Bible is describing this land with a lot of poetry in it. It's calling it, right. It's the emphasis on what the land looks like. It says it's a spacious land. It's a land flowing with milk and honey. We're looking at the rich. This is the land. The book of Deuteronomy goes on saying it's calling it the land that lacks nothing, right? And then it gives more description. It said, for the Most High, your Nzambi, your creator, will bring you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and of depths that spring out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat, wheat and barley and wine, a land wherein you shall eat bread without scarceness. You shall not lack anything in it. Well, I like that part. You shall not lack anything in it. If you take that verse, for instance, and compare that with between sub-Saharan Africa and the modern Israel, and I remember, and I agree with Brother Michael, the land, knowing the land, the location of the land was part of being free, because when we understand the land that we're in, that is the promised land, the sub-Saharan African land, the Bantu land is our promised land, we stop looking at Europe, we stop looking at America, we stop looking at Israel, we stop looking at Rome, we stop looking at Saudi Arabia, and begin looking where we are, and begin using the resources, which we have them in abundance. We have all the resources we can think of the world. But the reason why we are not able to use them is because we've been programmed to seek the land, or the Holy Land, anywhere but where we are. Even though we are the biblical people, we are the Israelites of the Bible, right? So when you think about those two verses, they just gives you already a simple explanation of what the land looks like. The book of Deuteronomy goes on describing the land that you can dig copper without, you can get copper without digging. I mean, we know where copper is found. The predominantly copper and cobalt. These are the most mineral resources found predominantly on the continent of Africa, and precisely in the Congo region, right? So we can think about, when you think about that for a minute as we continue on this conversation, So when you read the other part that I would like to highlight is that Isaiah, right? The book of Isaiah, chapter 35, verse 1 to 2, again explains that the wilderness and the solitary place shall be glad for them. And excuse me, just a minute. Okay, so I'm reading Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 14 to 15. Again, it provides more explanation of what the land is, right? We're talking about a land, not a land like modern Israel. Modern Israel doesn't have we're talking about the most fertile land in the world. So this, yes, Brother Michael saying that we are using, we are not, we are using, I don't know if it's describing as theology, but it's the Bible that's saying this thing. The Bible is telling us where the land has the most mineral rich region, most fertile, the largest rivers in the world. It has beautiful mountains and waterfalls. We don't have any of this stuff. We don't have mountains. The largest in the Levant, there's no mountain as large as the mountains we have in sub-Saharan Africa, the Kilimanjaro and the rest of the mountains. The largest river in the world is the River Nile, which is big streams from the Bantu land. When you extend that into all the way to the River Congo as well. It's the widest river and the most strongest river in the world. And this is how in Africa the cleanest water you can think of are found on the continent of Africa. So when we listen to the Bible, not what the colonizers say, not what theologians say, but what the Bible is telling us. We cannot look anywhere for the promised land. And it's important, Brother Michael's point, it's important to know where the promised land is so that we can be able to receive the baraka, the blessings of the land. So if I go on deep a bit more into this, there's a lot more to share, but I know I have a few minutes to share everything. So But I remember mentioning about the tribe. Many of us, when we think about the Negroid tribes, right, we say the Negroes are the Shemites. When we think about the Shemites, the Shemites are all the sons of Shem. So we are looking at all the sons of Shem. We have to find out all of these sons of Shem are. If the Negroes, the Shemites, where are the Negroes? Where are the Negro land, Negro homeland in Sub-Saharan Africa? Who are these Negro? Are they? Do we have a history of every tribe in Africa, every Bantu, every not just Bantu, Niger, Congo tribe that live coming from Middle East? No. They are major tribes, their oral history, even a European can agree with the ones that say that modern Israel is the land of Israel can agree that many of these Niger Congo tribes are indigenous to this land because these people are the Shemites, and because these people are indigenous to the Niger Congo region, then we must assume, because the Bible is telling us that this land contains this land of Shem, right? Land of the Negroes, land of Shem. There's no question about that. It's the Bantu land. It's the promised land, and we must go from there. When we think about that, and then the Bible tells us about Canaan taking over the land of Shem, right? We are looking for Canaan within the land of Shem as well. It took a part of the land of Shem. Now I want to read. I want to talk about Jubilee, the book of Jubilees in extra biblical text, chapter 8. It actually explained what Elder Sarah was talking about. He described South Africa as being the land of Eden, right? The Garden of Eden, which is actually the word is drawn from the word Al-Kebulan. When you think about Al-Kebulan, right, you think about it being the Garden of Eden. Most people don't ask why, and that's why it's important to use every evidence. A good researcher does not limit himself. Those are theologians, people who believe, who are drawn to a dogmatic, kind of concept, are the ones that stuck on one narrative, and they don't want to search anywhere outside of that. But when you look at the book of Jubilees, chapter 8, it describes the land of Shem as being the Garden of Eden as being in the land of Shem. So if Africa is the Garden of Eden, which there's no question about it, because the name Al-Kebulan means Garden of Eden. Also, Africa has the oldest archaeological human remains you can think of. That makes them again the Garden of Eden. So if Africa is the Garden of Eden, then the land of Shem, which again back up, not my own word, not the Egyptians, but what the Bible itself telling you, that this is the land of Shem. These are the Shemitic people. There's no, we don't have to go outside of that, outside of this land. So what else? I want to. The other point that I want to jump on quickly, because I know we don't have enough time. Is that all Bantu people? Because all of us here believe that the Bantu are the Israelites of the Bible. Now, what do the Bantu people say about themselves? The Bantu people tells you clearly that they know who they are. They have we are divided into 600 languages, and these are all dialects really of the same Bantu that make up the Bantu language, the Bantu family. These tribes and languages and clans who stream from the same ancestor, from the same linguistic, cultural, and genetic ancestor, they all believe in the same thing. I remember one time I was listening to King Bungani, I think of the Embu tribe. He's claiming that most of all the tribes in Southern Africa, they have an origin from the Congo region. This is the Congo area where we all come from. The king himself on the screen saying the same thing that backs up the Bible. Being the Shemites, being the Negro, the Shemites, our land is also the promised land. So I want to go on more into this, and I know I'm trying to rush because I don't have enough time. But the other point that I wanted to point out is the Bantu migration. When you look at the Bantu migration, right, most people just don't take the time to think about what the Bantu migration says about where the land, where the land is. If the Bantu are the Israelites, then we have to study their migration. We have to study their history, their languages, their science, their knowledge. They are the ones with the truth, because they are the people of the book. not the Jewish people, not any other people. So now the Bantu people, now when you study their migration history, the Europeans claim that the Bantu people started their migration began between 2000 BC and 1000 BC. When you think about that, you look at the biblical migration of the Israelites, right? When you open your eyes, just look through this archaeological or this historical, what you've been presented is telling you. They're telling you the Bantu migration was between 2000 and 1000 BC. Now, when you look at the Israelite migration, let's go back to the ancestors of the Israelites. Abraham himself. We are told that Abraham left the land of his ancestral land, which again the Negro land. Abraham was a Shemite. If the Negroes are Shemite, then we are looking at the Negro land. That's where Abraham was, and then he left his homeland, which is again within the territory of sub-Saharan Africa. And the Bible says that he went into the land of Canaan. Now, the time that scholars have placed that time of Abraham migration is in around 2000 BCE. And it says that he came from West Africa. He left from his land of origin. He came to the land of Canaan, which is really West Africa, migrating from West Africa to Central and Southern Africa. And then it says the years are the same. The migration, if you remember, if you keep in mind that the Bantu are the Shemites, the Niger Congo people or the Negroes are the Shemites, then you realize that the migration has to happen around. If Abraham was left his land of his ancestor, which is a Shemitic land, that is the Negroes, then you look from that migration on, and then we see Abraham coming to the land of Canaan, which is really Central Southern Africa, and then going towards Egypt. And then we see the migration of the Israelites happening from Egypt, returning to the land. The Bible, scholars have agreed that it will happen between 15th century, 15th centuries AD, BCE, 1000 to 1050, 1500 to 1000 BCE. That's when this period happened. Again, within the same time frame of the Bantu migration. Every Bantu tribe have a narrative of leaving West Africa, but they also have a narrative of leaving Egypt, which proves that the Bible is not a lie. The Bible is true, but you have to read the Bible without Eurocentric ideologies and narratives that we've been brainwashed with for thousands of years. I have a lot of stuff to share, but I've been given 15 minutes. So I'm just going to draw some conclusion because I'm only left with 1 minute. I'm only 1 minute and 17 seconds. So again, and my book elaborates more on this. When you think about the Bantu people, you think about I'm Bantu. I'm descendant of Bantu. The African American are descendant of Bantu people. When you think about you are that, and you realize that you are an Israelite, this is not a call for you to be converted. This is not a call for you to reject who you are. It's an inner work. It's a work that you have to do from inside, within your land, within your language, within your people. It's a calling to return, not a calling to convert. And every time we claim everything outside of what the Bible is telling us, because that's what we've been programmed to see, we are being converted because many of us are being converted to Judaism. The modern religion itself, not necessarily the biblical way of doing things, and it's important to know there's a difference between Judaism, which is a modern religion, a Jewish religion, which has been corrupted to worship white narratives, as opposed to the biblical way of life, biblical truth, what the Bible says. Thank you.